The steel beams clang against each other as the crane swings them overhead, a sound that's been my morning alarm for 30 years. I unlock the site trailer, flick on the fluorescent lights that buzz like angry wasps, and spread the blueprints across the scratched metal desk. Something's off. The material delivery log shows we should have twice the rebar we've got stacked by the East Foundation. Third time this month. I rub my calloused thumb across the numbers like I could make them change by touch alone. Outside, Pittsburgh wakes up slow. Fog hangs between the buildings like yesterday's ghosts. It'll burn off by 9, but for now, it turns the sunrise into something dirty and uncertain. Perfect match for my mood. I check my watch, 6:15, 45 minutes before the crew meeting. Enough time to figure out what the hell happened to my rebar. I flip through the delivery confirmations, initials scratched at the bottom of each form. The signatures don't match. Someone signed for material we never got. The trailer door creaks open, letting in a blast of cold air, and Rick, the assistant foreman. Always first to arrive after me. Always smiling like he knows something you don't. "Morning, Mike," he says, pouring coffee from the pot I started. His boots are clean. Too clean for someone who's been on site all week. "Rick," I nod, sliding the paperwork under a stack of permits. "Concrete pour still on for Friday?" "Far as I know." He leans against the wall, watching me. "Unless we got more delays." The way he says delays makes my neck muscles tighten, like he's expecting them. Counting on them, maybe. By 6:45, the trailer fills with the smell of coffee, wet coats, and yesterday's cigarettes. My crew filters in, 12 men I've worked with for years, faces weathered by Pittsburgh winters and summer heat. I know which ones are nursing hangovers, which ones are fighting with their wives, which ones are solid as the foundations we pour. The young one with the safety vest that's too new rubs his red eyes. The old-timer with 3 fingers missing on his left hand tells a joke nobody laughs at. The tall one with the Steelers thermos nods to me, reliable as always. "All right," I say at 7 sharp, and the room quiets. "Safety first. We got high winds predicted today. Nobody works exposed on the 5th floor without double harnesses. No exceptions. I run through the morning checklist, hazards, assignments, expectations. They listen because I've never asked them to do anything I wouldn't do myself. 30 years climbing steel and pouring concrete builds a different kind of respect than you get from an office and a college degree. "One more thing," I say, feeling the weight of what comes next. "We're short on materials again. Rebar delivery signed for on Tuesday is half what it should be." The room shifts, glances exchanged. The old-timer spits into his empty coffee cup. "That's the 3rd time," says the guy with the thermos. "Someone's fucking with us." "Or stealing," adds another. Rick stands in the corner, arms crossed. "Could be a clerical error at the supplier." 3 times isn't an error, I say. It's a pattern. I look at each face, searching for something. Guilt, knowledge, concern. "I'm meeting with Keystone Management today. In the meantime, we reorganize. East Foundation gets priority on the rebar we do have." They nod, faces grim. "We're behind schedule already. Missing materials means missed deadlines, and in construction, that means penalties. Penalties mean tighter budgets, fewer hours, less work for everyone." "That's it," I say. "Let's get after it." They file out, shoulders hunched against the morning chill. Rick lingers, checking his phone, thumbs moving fast. "Problem?" I ask. He looks up, surprised. "Nah, just the wife." He slips the phone into his pocket. "You need me to call the supplier about that rebar?" "I got it," I say, though I've never known Rick to volunteer for paperwork. After he leaves, I walk the site. The skeleton of what will be a 6-story office building rises from concrete foundations, steel bones against the clearing sky. My life's work isn't any single building, but the knowledge that each one stands because I made sure it would. No shortcuts, no compromises. Back in the trailer, I compare the inventory sheets with what's actually on site. Not just rebar, but anchor bolts, steel plates, joint connectors, all short, small amounts each time, easy to miss if you're not looking. But I'm looking now. My phone buzzes, Sharon's name on the screen. My wife of 27 years, calling at 8:30 when she should be at her salon appointment. "Hey," I answer. "Just checking on you," she says, voice light. Too light. "How's your day looking?" "Same as always. Why? Can't a wife just call her husband?" A pause. "Will you be home for dinner or working late?" "Should be home normal time, around 6. I frown at the delivery logs in front of me. "Why?" "Just planning." Another pause. "Is that big concrete pour this week? The one with the overtime?" My grip tightens on the phone. Sharon hasn't asked about concrete pours or overtime in years. "Friday," I say. "Why the sudden interest in my schedule?" "Mike, honestly, I'm just trying to keep track of when you'll be home. And, well, we could use the extra money, right? With the kitchen renovation?" The kitchen renovation she insisted on last month after years of saying our kitchen was fine. "Yeah," I say, "extra money's always good." After a few more minutes of small talk that feels like walking through quicksand, we hang up. I stare at the phone in my hand. 27 years of marriage teaches you things. The way someone sounds when they're not telling the whole truth. The questions they suddenly ask after years of not asking. The missing materials, Rick's 2 clean boots, Sharon's new interest in my schedule and pay. Outside, steel clangs against steel. The job continues, but something cold and certain settles in my gut, a feeling I've learned to trust more than paperwork or promises. Something's very wrong here, and I need to find out what before it all comes crashing down. The neon Budweiser sign in the window of Flanagan's casts red shadows across the scarred wooden table. I'm on my 2nd beer, nursing it slow, watching the door. 7:30 on a Tuesday night means the bar's half empty. A couple of old-timers at the counter, a group of younger guys playing darts, nobody close enough to hear a private conversation. That's why I picked it. That, and because Riley Hunt said he prefers places where the bartenders don't water down the whiskey. When he walks in, I almost don't recognize him. It's been 2 years since he helped my brother-in-law with that insurance mess. He looks older, the gray at his temples more pronounced, the lines around his eyes deeper. He still moves like a cop, though, scanning the room before he spots me, noting exits, assessing threats that aren't there but might be someday. "Mike!" He slides into the booth across from me, setting down a small notebook. His jacket has seen better days, pockets bulging with who knows what. "Been a while." "Appreciate you coming." I push the menu toward him. "Kitchen makes a decent burger." The waitress swings by and Riley orders whiskey, neat, and that burger. I get another beer. We wait until she's gone before getting to it. "So," Riley opens his notebook. "On the phone you mentioned problems at work and home." I take a slow pull from my beer, trying to organize thoughts I've been avoiding all day. "You remember what I do? Construction foreman, Keystone Group, 20-some years now." 32, I correct him. "Started as a laborer at 18. He nods, making a note. "And the wife?" "Sharon, 27 years married next month." The beer tastes bitter suddenly. 2 kids, both grown and gone. Riley waits. Good at that, waiting. I've seen men crack under that quiet stare of his, but I'm not cracking, just trying to say out loud what's been churning in my gut all day. Materials keep going missing at the site. Not enough to notice right away, but enough to put us behind schedule. Delivery logs don't match what's on site. Someone's signing for stuff we're not getting. Riley nods. Inside job? Has to be. And today, Sharon calls, asking about my schedule, my overtime. Never does that. Never has. The waitress brings our drinks. Riley takes a sip of whiskey, rolling it around his mouth like he's testing it. When did the materials start going missing? 3 weeks ago. Around the same time, Sharon started talking about renovating the kitchen. $30,000 worth of renovations. Riley's eyes narrow slightly. You think she's involved? I stare at the foam on my beer. Saying it out loud feels like betrayal, but the thought's been there all day. A splinter I can't dig out. I think she's been acting strange, secretive, always on her phone, jumpy when I come into a room, and Rick, my assistant foreman. I trail off. What about him? Too clean, too eager to help with the paperwork lately. And he was texting someone this morning. Looked surprised when I caught him at it. Riley makes another note. You think they're... He doesn't finish the sentence. Doesn't need to. I don't know what to think. My voice comes out harder than I meant it to. That's why I called you. He nods, understanding in his eyes. Not pity. I couldn't stomach pity right now. But something else. Recognition. Had a brother, Riley says after a moment. Back in Arizona. Construction, like you. Not as high up, though. Just a framer. He takes another sip of whiskey. His wife started acting the same way. Phone calls, sudden interest in his schedule. Turned out she was selling his tools to pay for a habit he didn't know about. Sharon's not on drugs, I say quickly. Didn't say she was. Just saying people hide things for all kinds of reasons. He stares into his glass. My brother didn't want to know the truth. Kept making excuses, even when his truck got repossessed. By the time he admitted there was a problem, he'd lost the house, the savings, everything. The burger arrives. Riley cuts it in half methodically, like he's performing an autopsy. What happened to him? I ask. A shadow crosses Riley's face. Nothing good. The shame ate him alive. Not just what she did, that he didn't see it coming, that he didn't protect himself. He looks up at me. That's why I got into this work. Too many people find out too late. I think about Sharon's face this morning as she asked about the concrete pour, the way Rick watches me when he thinks I'm not looking, the missing rebar that no one can explain. I need to know, I say. Whatever it is, Riley nods. I'll need access to the site, a reason to be there that won't raise flags. I think for a moment. We're short a safety inspector. You could fill in, check things out. I can clear it with the office. Good, and your house. I'll need to know Sharon's routine. When she's out, who visits? My stomach tightens, but I nod. Whatever it takes. We spend the next 30 minutes going over details. My schedule, Sharon's weekly habits, the layout of the site, which crew members I trust, which ones I don't. Riley takes notes in a shorthand I can't read, occasionally asking a question that cuts straight to something I hadn't even considered. When we're done, he closes the notebook. $500 for the week, plus expenses. If we need longer, we'll talk. I slide an envelope across the table. Half now, half when you're done. He pockets it without counting. I'll start tomorrow. Act normal. Don't confront anyone. Don't change your routine. And if I find something before you do? You won't, he says simply. That's why you hired me. Outside, the night air has turned cold. We stand in the parking lot, breath fogging in the yellow security lights. One more thing, Riley says. You ready for answers? Really ready? Because once you know, you can't unknow. I think about my 32 years pouring concrete and raising steel. About the honest work that's defined my life, about Sharon's smile when we were young, and the silence between us now. I'm ready. He nods, shakes my hand, and heads to his car, an old Chevy with rust along the wheel wells. I watch him slide into the driver's seat, flip open that notebook, and start writing by the dome light. Not driving away yet. The real work, I realize, starts after the whistle, after the beers are drunk and the stories told. When everyone else goes home, Riley Hunt sits in cold cars and writes in notebooks and uncovers the truths people hide from themselves. I drive home with the radio off, thinking about missing rebar and secret phone calls, and the foundation of my life that suddenly feels like it's built on sand instead of concrete. Something's coming, something that will test every joint and weld of the life I've constructed. And for the first time in 30 years of building, I'm not sure if what I've built is strong enough to stand. The hard hat sits awkward on my head, like it knows I don't belong here. I adjust the clipboard in my hands, prop from a costume I've worn too many times before. Safety inspector, building code enforcer, health department official. Different titles, same game. Watch without being watched. Listen without being heard. The construction site sprawls before me, a half-finished skeleton of steel and concrete reaching toward a flat gray sky. Somewhere in this maze of beams and wires is the truth Mike Donnelly is paying me to find. It's noon, and the site transforms as lunchboxes snap open across the sprawling concrete floor of what will someday be the 5th floor. Men in hard hats gather in loose circles, their voices echoing against exposed beams. The smell of ham sandwiches, soup from thermoses, and coffee mixes with concrete dust and sweat. I check boxes on my form, wandering close enough to hear without joining. So I told her, "Lady, that ain't rust, that's Pittsburgh perfume." The old-timer with missing fingers slaps his knee, and the others erupt in laughter. His sandwich looks the same as the ones my father packed: white bread, bologna, American cheese. Working man's fuel. Mike sits apart, back against a column, thermos between his knees. His eyes track me briefly, then slide away. Good man. Follows instructions. His lunch remains untouched as he studies a blueprint, pencil making small marks. I've seen that look before. A man building walls inside himself while he builds walls for others. A blue sedan pulls into the lower parking area, out of place among the trucks and company vehicles. The lunch chatter continues, but I edge toward the temporary railing, clipboard raised like I'm inspecting welds. The car door opens, and Sharon Donnelly steps out, blonde hair catching sunlight, expensive sunglasses hiding her eyes. She wears heels that sink slightly into the gravel, a reminder that she doesn't belong here any more than I do. I count to 30, then follow the path she takes, down the temporary stairs, around the cement mixer, toward the cluster of site trailers. She doesn't head for Mike's trailer, but angles toward the delivery area where trucks unload material. My boots make too much noise on the metal stairs, so I take them 2 at a time, silent on the balls of my feet, a habit from too many years wearing a badge. Rick Summers waits behind a flatbed truck, arms crossed over his reflective vest, an unlit cigarette tucked behind his ear like a pencil. His boots are clean again today, I notice. Too clean for a man who supposedly works with concrete and mud all day. I duck behind a stack of lumber, close enough to see but not be seen. The clipboard provides cover as I pretend to make notes. The wind carries their voices to me in fragments. "Didn't expect you here," Rick says, eyes darting toward the main site. "Not safe for—" "I had to," Sharon cuts him off. Her voice is higher than I expected, tight with nerves. "Mike's asking questions about the rebar shipment. He's meeting with management this afternoon." Rick curses, taking the cigarette from behind his ear, but not lighting it. "Told you to wait. Hitting the same materials too often gets noticed." "It's not just that." She shifts her weight, heels unsteady on the gravel. He met someone last night. Didn't come home until late. My throat tightens. Mike didn't mention stopping anywhere after our meeting at Flanagan's. Followed instructions, but not completely. Kept his cards close. Can't blame him. Trust comes hard when you're questioning a 27-year marriage. Probably just drinking with the boys. Rick dismisses her concern with a wave. Look, we need to stick to the plan. 2 more weeks of delays, the penalty clauses kick in. Mike takes the fall for mismanagement, I step up as foreman, and we— It's too slow, Sharon interrupts. The kitchen renovation is eating up more than we thought. We need to be patient, Rick corrects. His hand reaches for hers, but she pulls back. Not here, her body language says. Too exposed. The wind shifts, taking their voices. I edge closer, risking exposure for clarity. Doesn't suspect anything? Rick asks. Sharon's laugh is brittle, like thin ice cracking. Mike? He wouldn't notice if I danced naked in front of him with another man's name tattooed on my chest. He sees concrete and steel, not people. Never has. Rick nods like he understands, but his eyes hold something else. Calculation, not compassion. Just make sure you get the bid docs from his office. Without those, we can't— I have them. She reaches into her purse, a leather thing that probably cost more than what these men make in a week, and pulls out a manila envelope. Everything from the West Ridge project. Bid amounts, material costs, subcontractor quotes. The leak will look like it came from Mike's carelessness. My hand instinctively reaches for the small camera in my jacket pocket. One of the few upgrades I've made to my toolkit over the years, digital now instead of film, but just as silent. I frame the shot through a gap in the lumber. Sharon's manicured hand extending the envelope, Rick's fingers closing around it, their faces in profile. The camera makes no sound, but captures 3, 4, 5 images in rapid succession. This puts their bid at risk, Rick says, tucking the envelope inside his jacket, and the bank loan for the Southside project. Keystone won't survive both hits, and Mike won't survive the blame. Sharon's voice holds no regret, no hesitation. 27 years of marriage reduced to an inconvenience, a barrier to something she wants more. I take 2 more photos, then ease back as Rick glances in my direction. His eyes pass over my hiding spot without pausing, but it's time to move. I've seen enough, more than enough. As I make my way back toward the main site, my mind catalogues the evidence. Sharon delivering confidential company information to Rick. The 2 of them manufacturing delays and sabotaging materials to force penalty clauses. A plan to destroy Mike's reputation and position. And beneath it all, the betrayal that Mike suspected but couldn't bring himself to name. His hands were steady this morning when he introduced me to the crew as the new safety inspector. His voice didn't waver when he pointed out areas for me to check. But I saw what the others missed, the way his eyes followed Sharon's car as she drove away from their house, the slight tightening of his jaw when Rick approached with a question. A man who builds things knows when something is being torn down, even if he can't see the hands holding the sledgehammer. I climb back to the 5th floor where the crew is packing up lunchboxes, returning to their posts. Mike stands by a column, phone to his ear, face impassive. Probably the office, confirming his meeting with management. A meeting where he'll be questioned about missing materials and project delays, unaware that his wife and assistant have engineered his downfall. My camera feels heavy in my pocket. Tonight I'll show him exactly what foundation his life is built on, and together we'll decide what can be salvaged from the wreckage. Rain hammers against the kitchen windows like someone trying to break in. Maybe it's the truth, finally demanding entrance. I spread the photos across Mike's kitchen table, glossy 4x6 confessions in full color. Sharon handing Rick the envelope. Their heads bent close, sharing secrets and more. The timestamp in the corner, 12:47 p.m., yesterday. Proof that doesn't bend or break under the weight of 30 years of marriage. Mike stands with his back to me, hands gripping the counter, knuckles white against the worn formica. "There's more," I say, placing documents beside the photos. "Delivery confirmations with forged signatures. Work orders altered after you signed them. Material invoices that don't match what arrived on site." I pause, letting him absorb it. "And this, bank statements showing transfers from your joint account to a new one opened 6 months ago." Lightning flashes, turning the kitchen briefly white before surrendering to shadow again. The house creaks around us, settling into the storm like an old man into a familiar pain. "How long?" Mike asks finally, his voice rough as unfinished concrete. "The account? 6 months. The affair? Hard to say exactly." I keep my voice neutral, professional. "Based on text messages I recovered, at least 3 months. Maybe longer." He turns from the counter, eyes moving from photo to photo. His face doesn't change, but something in his posture shifts, like a support beam taking on more weight than it was designed to hold. "The materials, the delays, it's all connected," I continue. "They've been systematically sabotaging the project, creating delivery problems, altering work orders, even tampering with equipment. The goal is to trigger the penalty clauses in your contract with the city. When that happens, Keystone will need a scapegoat. Me, not a question. You. Rick takes your position. Sharon gets half of everything in the divorce, and together they walk away with your reputation, your job, and about $200,000 from your retirement account." Mike sits down heavily, pulls one photo closer. Sharon looking up at Rick, her mouth caught in mid-sentence, eyes bright with something that isn't love, but might be mistaken for it in bad light. "There's one more thing," I say, placing a final document in front of him. "Payroll records. They've been skimming from the weekly contractor payments. Small amounts, redirected to shell companies. Nearly 40,000 so far." His finger traces the column of figures, a habit from years of checking measurements and load calculations. "Shell companies? 3 of them, all registered to P.O. boxes, all with the same signature, R. Summers." Mike nods slowly, processing. His eyes drift to the window where rain streams down the glass, distorting the backyard into a smear of dark shapes. The silence stretches between us, filled only by the drumming of the storm. "I built this house," he says finally, voice distant. 1994. Took me 18 months, working weekends, nights, after my regular job. His eyes move across the kitchen, seeing things I can't. "Sharon was pregnant with Katie. We were renting a place in Garfield, barely making ends meet. The land was cheap, too far from the city for most people, nothing but mud and scrub trees. I say nothing, recognizing the need to speak the memories aloud, to make sense of then versus now. Dug the foundation myself. Buddy from work helped me pour the concrete. Sharon brought us sandwiches, sat on an overturned bucket, big with the baby." A ghost of a smile crosses his face. "She'd rub her belly and say, 'Hurry up, Mike. This kid needs a room with a view.'" He looks back at the photos, the smile vanishing. "Framed it through winter. Coldest December on record. Fingers so numb I couldn't hold a nail, but I kept going. Every beam, every joist, every piece of this place, I put it together. For us." His hand forms a fist on the table. "For her." Outside, thunder rumbles, closer now, directly overhead. The lights flicker once, twice, but hold. "The project," he says, changing course. "Keystone will lose the Westridge bid if those documents get leaked. The whole company could go under. 38 guys out of work. Not your problem," I remind him. "They were ready to throw you to the wolves. Management, maybe. Not my crew." He shakes his head. Those guys depend on these jobs, mortgages, kids in college, medical bills. It's not just about me. I've seen this before. The betrayed somehow taking responsibility for things outside their control, a kind of survivor's guilt turned inward. Mike, I say carefully, this isn't something you can fix with overtime and extra effort. These people, your wife, Rick, they've been planning this for months. They wanted to destroy you. I know that. His voice hardens. But I'm not going to let them destroy everything else, too. I watch him calculate, the same way he probably calculates load-bearing capacities and material requirements, measuring what can be salvaged, what must be torn down. What's your next move? I ask. You have copies of all this? The photos, the documents? I nod. Digital and physical. Secured. Good. He sorts through the papers, arranging them in some order that makes sense to him. I need to protect the crew, the company, stop the leak, then deal with Rick and... He falters for the first time. And Sharon. His hands are steady now, methodical as they organize the evidence of his life's unraveling. But I notice something else, the slight flush at his neck, the tightness around his eyes. His hands might be steady, but inside something is burning. You don't have to decide everything tonight, I say. Yes, I do. He looks up, and I see it now. Not just anger, but resolve. The same determination that must have driven him to build a house with his bare hands through the coldest winter on record. They thought I was too stupid to notice, too weak to fight back. Thought they could take everything I've built. The thunder crashes again, and this time the lights go out completely, plunging the kitchen into darkness. In the sudden quiet after the thunder, I hear Mike's breathing, deep, controlled, the breathing of a man preparing for heavy labor. Not my house, he says into the darkness. Not my crew. Not my life. When lightning flashes again, I see him clearly for a moment, fist raised and then coming down hard on the table, rattling the photos and papers. Not one goddamn inch of what I've built. The lights flicker back on, revealing Mike standing now, the evidence gathered in his hands, his face set in lines as immovable as the foundation beneath us. In that moment, I'm reminded that before buildings rise, ground must be broken, and Mike Donnelly looks ready to break whatever stands in his way. The Keystone Construction Management Office smells of industrial carpet cleaner and stale coffee. Fluorescent lights buzz overhead, giving everyone the complexion of day-old bread. Rick Summers lounges in a chair across from the conference table, one ankle resting on the opposite knee, his safety vest exchanged for a button-down shirt that strains slightly across his chest. He's smiling, the smile of a man who believes he's already won, who's just waiting for the paperwork to catch up with reality. He hasn't noticed that the blinds are drawn or that the company secretary locked the door after we entered. Details matter in moments like these. So does timing. What's this about? Rick asks, directing the question to Bob Walters, Keystone's gray-haired VP of operations. I've got a crew waiting on instructions. The East Foundation pour is scheduled for 2. Won't take long, I say, sliding into the chair opposite him. Just need clarification on some paperwork. Rick notices me fully for the first time, his smile faltering before reasserting itself. The safety inspector? Thought you finished your report yesterday. Different kind of safety, I reply, opening my briefcase. The door opens again, admitting 2 men I introduced to Mike this morning. Jim Harlow, thick-necked and serious in a Union jacket with a local 157 patch on the sleeve, and Detective Ray Morgan of the Pittsburgh Police Financial Crimes Unit, who looks like he slept in his shirt and subsists entirely on gas station coffee. Rick's smile vanishes completely now, his eyes darting between faces, calculating. What is this? "This," Bob Walters says, leaning forward, "is your opportunity to explain yourself before formal charges are filed." Rick laughs, but it's forced, hollow. "Charges? For what? I've been busting my ass to keep that project on schedule despite all the problems." "That's one version," I say, removing folders from my briefcase and placing them on the table. "Here's another. You've been systematically sabotaging the project for months, altering delivery schedules, forging signatures, misdirecting materials, tampering with equipment." I slide the first folder toward him. "Creating delays that would trigger penalty clauses and cost Keystone both the current contract and future bids." Rick doesn't touch the folder. "That's ridiculous. Ask anyone on site. I'm the one trying to fix the problems Mike Donnelly can't handle." Jim Harlow, the union rep, clears his throat. "We did ask, Rick. Talked to every member on that crew this morning. Interesting what people remember when they're shown the right questions." I open the folder. "Delivery confirmation for the rebar shipment on the 15th. Your signature, but the driver's log shows he delivered to a different address. A storage facility on Carson Street." I place a rental agreement next to it. "Rented in cash, but the security camera caught a familiar face. Yours." "This is a joke," Rick says, but sweat beads along his hairline. "Nobody's laughing," Detective Morgan says, his voice gravel and rust. He wears a rumpled jacket with coffee stains on the cuff and tired eyes that have seen every kind of lie the city has to offer. "Especially not the DA's office," I continue, methodical as a concrete pour. "Falsified work orders, altered invoices, equipment maintenance reports showing routine checks that never happened." Each document joins the growing pile. "And the interesting part, all these problems started showing up right around the time you opened these." Detective Morgan slides 3 bank statements across the table. "Shell companies, R&S Consulting, Summit Materials, Pinnacle Management, all registered to P.O. boxes, all receiving transfers from Keystone contractors and suppliers. $47,000 so far." Rick's face has gone the color of wet cement. "This is... you can't..." He takes a deep breath, straightening his shoulders. "You're talking about minor administrative errors, paperwork mistakes, nothing criminal. Theft, fraud, conspiracy." Morgan ticks them off on nicotine-stained fingers. "The Westridge bid documents alone, industrial espionage, theft of trade secrets, 5 to 7 years, minimum." For the first time, real fear flashes across Rick's face. "What bid documents?" I place the photos on the table, Sharon handing Rick the envelope in the construction site parking lot. Their heads close together, his hand on her wrist. "Those were delivered to our competitors yesterday," Bob Walters says, voice cold. "Fortunately, we received an anonymous tip and were able to withdraw and resubmit before the deadline. Otherwise, you'd be looking at charges for the collapse of an entire company." Rick stares at the photos, then at the faces around the table. His confidence crumbles visibly like a wall missing its rebar. "Mike put you up to this," he says, a desperate edge in his voice. "He's trying to frame me because he knows he's finished. He's been mismanaging that site for months. Ask anyone." "We did," Jim Harlow says. "Every member of that crew says the same thing. Mike Donnelly runs the tightest, safest, most efficient operation they've ever worked. No one believed he was responsible for the problems. They just couldn't figure out who was. So we followed the evidence," I add. "The missing materials, the altered documents, the money." I tap the bank statements. "It all leads back to you, Rick, and to your accomplice." His eyes dart to the door like he's considering a run for it. Not a chance with Morgan in the room, but desperate men make stupid calculations. "This was her idea," Rick blurts. "Sharon's, all of it. She approached me, said Mike was checked out, that the company needed new blood. She had access to his files, his computer. She's the one who wanted him to take the fall. Bob Walters leans back, disgust evident on his face. Blaming a woman now. Real stand-up guy. It's the truth. She was using me to get at Mike's pension, his house, everything. I just played along because... Rick's voice trails off as he realizes no explanation will help him now. Because you wanted his job, Morgan finishes for him, and his wife. 2 for special on another man's life. Rick's shoulders slump. I want a lawyer. Smart choice, Morgan says, standing. First sensible thing you've said today. He pulls handcuffs from his jacket pocket. Richard Summers, you're under arrest for fraud, theft, conspiracy to commit industrial espionage. He continues reading rights as he cuffs Rick's hands behind his back. I pack my briefcase as Morgan leads Rick out, the detective's voice fading down the hallway. Bob Walters and Jim Harlow remain, faces grim but satisfied. What about Sharon Donnelly? Walters asks. Detective Morgan has officers at her house now, I answer. Same charges, plus grand theft for the missing payroll funds. She was making withdrawals from those shell company accounts for months. Walters shakes his head. And Mike? How's he holding up? Better than you'd expect. I close my briefcase. He's more concerned about the crew, the project timeline. Tell him his job is secure, Walters says. More than secure. We'll need a new project manager for the South Side development now that... He gestures to the door where Rick exited. I'll tell him, I promise, though I already know Mike's answer. He didn't build his life to climb over others, just to build. Solid, honest, true. Outside, Pittsburgh's midday sun burns through the morning haze, turning the steel and glass buildings into mirrors reflecting each other. From the parking lot, I can see the Keystone Project rising in the distance, the bones of something that will outlast all of us and our temporary troubles. Mike stands by his truck, watching the same skyline. He nods when I approach, his face weathered but unbowed. It's done? He asks. The start of it, I answer. Rick's in custody. Sharon will be by now. There'll be court dates, paperwork, lawyers. He nods again, absorbing this. And the project? On track. Walters is sending a team to recover the missing materials. The pour is delayed until tomorrow, but no penalty clauses will trigger. Good. He looks back at the skyline, the steel skeleton of his work visible against the blue. What's left standing is what matters. I follow his gaze, understanding that he's not just talking about buildings. Some men, when their foundations crack, collapse entirely. Others find the broken places, dig down deeper, and rebuild. Mike Donnelly has always been a builder. Need anything else from me? I ask. He almost smiles. No, but thanks for seeing what I couldn't. As I walk to my car, I glance back once. Mike is already on his phone, probably calling his crew, rearranging tomorrow's schedule, planning the next pour, the next wall, the next step forward. Some men are destroyed by betrayal. Others are forged by it, emerging stronger, clearer about what matters. In the end, it's not what gets torn down that defines us, but what we choose to build in its place. The rain smears the gas station windows like tears on a dirty face. I count the minutes until my shift ends, watching the door like it might swing open and offer escape. 6 months since the courtroom, the plea deal, the community service that wasn't enough punishment according to half of Pittsburgh. Now I'm Sharon Donnelly, gas station cashier, ex-wife, convicted felon with a suspended sentence. The fall from grace still feels like a dive from the 5th floor of one of Mike's construction sites. My fingers tap the counter, nails bitten down to the quick. No salon appointments now, no expensive polish, just hands that smell like cigarettes and the chemical tang of cheap cleaner. The fluorescent lights overhead make everything look sickly, especially me. The bell over the door jingles. A man in a soaked pirate's cap shakes raindrops onto the already grimy floor. He grabs a coffee, a packaged honey bun, tosses exact change on the counter without looking at me. "Keep the penny," he mumbles, already turning away. I sweep the coins into my palm, $2.51 for items totaling $2.50. 1 cent, my tip for existing. I should put it in the register, but instead, it slides into my pocket. A tiny rebellion against a world that stripped me of everything else. The memory of handcuffs biting into my wrists still wakes me at night. Detective Morgan reading charges while neighbors watched from their porches. Rick already singing like a canary, blaming me for everything. My lawyer negotiating the plea deal, reduced charges in exchange for full restitution. The judge's face, a mask of contempt as he sentenced me to probation, community service, and the special hell of everyone knowing exactly what I'd done. "You stole from your husband," he'd said, not bothering to hide his disgust. "Conspired to destroy his reputation, his career. In my courtroom, that's worse than stealing money." A semi rumbles into the lot, its brakes hissing like a warning. The driver will want coffee, will leave mud on my freshly mopped floor, might even recognize me from the news. 6 months isn't long enough for people to forget the headlines. Local woman arrested in construction fraud scheme. Contractor's wife charged with conspiracy. The middle-aged woman at Pump 3 finishes filling her tank, comes inside for a receipt. Her eyes slide over me with the particular blend of curiosity and revulsion I've come to recognize. She knows who I am, or thinks she does. "Receipt for Pump 3, she says, pushing a 20 across the counter. I ring it up. $19.47. She waits, hand extended for the change. I count it into her palm, deliberately slow. 2 quarters, 3 pennies. Her fingers close around them. "Have a nice day," I say, the words empty as the space where my wedding ring used to be. After she leaves, I reach into my pocket, feel the penny I took earlier. A minute passes, 2. I add it to the 3 others I've pocketed during my shift. 4 cents. Pathetic. But it's something that's not accounted for, not controlled by probation officers or court-mandated financial monitoring, my own tiny score in a game I've already lost. "Sharon," my manager's voice cuts through my thoughts. Mark stands in the doorway to the back office, arms folded across his chest. He's 40-something, balding, wears the same blue polo shirt every day. His eyes flick to the security camera mounted in the corner, then back to me. "We need to talk about the register discrepancies." My throat constricts. "Discrepancies?" $3.27 short yesterday. $2 even the day before. He steps closer, voice dropping. "The cameras don't lie, Sharon. I've watched you pocketing change all week. The 4 pennies in my pocket suddenly weigh 100 pounds. I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't make this worse than it is." His face almost shows pity, which is worse than anger. "You're on probation. 1 call to your officer and—" The bell over the door cuts him off. My eyes dart to the entrance, relief flooding through me at the interruption, then freezing solid in my veins. Mike's truck sits at Pump 4, rain beating on its hood. Through the streaked windows, I watch him step out, my ex-husband, the man whose life I tried to destroy. He looks good, solid like the foundations he pours. His shoulders no longer stoop with the weight I put there. He moves with purpose, with a confidence I haven't seen in years. "Is that—" Mark begins. "Yes," I cut him off. "Can we finish this conversation later?" He follows my gaze, understanding dawning. "Fine, but we will finish it." Mark retreats to his office, leaving me alone with the view of Mike pumping gas, oblivious to my presence behind the smudged glass. The rain has eased, patches of blue appearing between clouds. Of course, the sky would clear for Mike Donnelly, the universe righting itself after the chaos I tried to create. Another car pulls in, a modest sedan, clean but not new. A woman emerges, wrapped in a practical raincoat, brown hair escaping from a ponytail. She moves to the pump opposite Mike's, and something in her posture makes him look up. I recognize her then, Lisa Harris, the nurse from the clinic where Mike got stitches after that sight accident 2 years ago. I'd met her once at a neighborhood block party, noted the way she'd looked at Mike when she thought no one was watching. Nothing happened then. Mike was too loyal, too blind to see the interest in her eyes. But now, I watch them notice each other, see Mike's face shift from polite recognition to genuine pleasure. He says something and she laughs, a real laugh, not the practiced titter I perfected for social occasions. They move closer, the gas pumps forgotten, rain-dampened heads bent toward each other in the peculiar intimacy of unexpected meetings. Their conversation flows easily, his hands moving as he talks, her head tilted in attention. His smile is different, looser somehow, free. They exchange what must be phone numbers, Lisa's fingers dancing across her screen, Mike's shoulders relaxed in a way they never were with me. My fingers close around the stolen pennies in my pocket. 4 cents, the sum total of my rebellion, my victory, my control over my new life. Outside, Mike helps Lisa with her gas cap, their hands brushing. Not a deliberate touch, but they both notice it. Both pause, both smile. Mark clears his throat behind me. Your register or your probation officer? Your choice. I pull the pennies from my pocket, place them on the counter. Through the window, Mike holds an umbrella over Lisa's head as she gets back into her car. The gesture is small, instinctive, kind. Everything I forgot he was. The register, I say, my voice a whisper as I watch Mike drive away, the truck's taillights disappearing into a world that's moving on without me. I choose the register. The sunset turns the steel beams into gold, like God himself decided to plate my work in something precious. I stand on the 5th floor of the South Side project, clipboard forgotten in my hand, watching my crew wind down for the day. 6 months since everything fell apart and somehow came back together stronger. The old-timer with 3 missing fingers tightens the last bolt on a support column, his weathered face creased in concentration. He catches me watching, offers a salute with his good hand. 6 months ago he thought I was finished. Hell, I thought I was finished too. "Looking good, boss," he calls over, voice rough as concrete mix. "Frames square as a nun's conscience." I nod, walking the perimeter, boots crunching on construction debris. The skeleton of what will become the Riverside complex rises around me. 12 stories when we're done, mixed use, the kind of project that defines careers. My career. The promotion Bob Walters offered came through just like he promised. Project manager. My name on the trailer door, my vision taking shape in steel and glass. Below, workers move like ants, finishing their day's tasks. The sunset paints them copper and bronze, long shadows stretching across the site. A young kid, new to the crew, struggles with securing a stack of rebar. I watch him fumble, then find his rhythm. He's green but eager. Reminds me of myself at that age before calluses and compromises. "Second chances, eh, Mike?" The foreman approaches, hard hat tucked under his arm, face lined with the particular exhaustion that comes from honest work. "Never thought Keystone would give me another shot after that Fisher project went sideways." "Everyone deserves one," I say, marking off the final inspection on my clipboard. "You, me, maybe not Rick, though." We share a laugh. Rick Summers became shorthand on site for betrayal, as in, "Don't pull a Rick," or "That beam looks ricked." Last I heard, he took a plea deal, 2 years instead of 7. Sharon got probation, community service. The papers loved that part, the judge calling her crime a betrayal worse than theft. That's Pittsburgh for you. Steal a man's wallet, that's one thing. Try to steal his reputation, his work, unforgivable. Heard from the supply chain manager, the foreman says, pulling me back to the present. Every delivery on time this month. No mysterious shortages. No forged signatures. Amazing what happens when people do their jobs instead of trying to screw each other over. The old-timer joins us, a thermos in his mangled hand. He wears a denim jacket with the sleeves cut off, despite the October chill, forearms mapped with faded tattoos and the scars of his trade. We finishing that east section tomorrow, boss? Or we waiting on the city inspector? Inspector's coming at 9, I say. Should clear us by noon if the weather holds. He nods, satisfied. Good. My grandson's got a football game tomorrow night. Promised I'd be there. There's easy respect in his voice now. Back in July, when I was reassembling the crew after everything went down, he'd been skeptical. You got screwed over good, he'd told me, but that don't mean you can lead again. I didn't argue, just proved him wrong, day by day, decision by decision. The young kid with the rebar approaches, safety vest too clean, hard hat sitting awkward on his head. Mr. Donnelly, I finished securing that shipment, but the manifest shows 20 units and I only counted 19. The foreman stiffens beside me, waiting for my reaction. 6 months ago, missing materials meant conspiracy. Now it's probably just a counting error, but old fears die hard. Show me, I say, following him to the storage area. The kid counts again, pointing to each bundle. 1 short, see? I look at the manifest, then at the delivery confirmation. Check under the tarp by the cement mixer. They sometimes unload them in 2 spots when we're busy. He jogs off, eager to prove himself. The foreman gives me a sidelong glance. You didn't lose your cool. No point hunting ghosts, I say. Most problems have simple solutions if you look hard enough. The kid returns, grinning. Found it, Mr. Donnelly. Right where you said, good. Double-check next time before you bring it up. But I'm glad you noticed the discrepancy. I clap him on the shoulder. That kind of attention keeps jobs on track. His face flushes with pride as he hurries back to finish his tasks. The foreman chuckles. You got away with these young ones. Firm, but fair. Learned from my mistakes, I say, watching the sight transform in the fading light. Trust, but verify. Then trust again. By 7, the day crew has cleared out, leaving behind the skeleton of tomorrow's work. I do one final walkthrough, checking connections, eyeing alignment, ensuring everything is secure before we start again at dawn. The site feels different after hours, peaceful but expectant, like a theater between acts. A familiar car pulls into the lot below, Riley Hunt's old Chevy, rust still eating at the wheel wells. He steps out, collar turned up against the evening chill. Notebook tucked into his jacket pocket as always. Some habits don't change, even when everything else does. I meet him at the site entrance, passing through the temporary gate. Didn't expect to see you here. Riley shrugs, hands deep in his pockets. Was in the neighborhood. Thought I'd see how it's coming along. His eyes scan the rising structure, professional assessment in his gaze. Impressive. Getting there, I say. Another 4 months if the weather cooperates. We walk in silence for a moment, gravel crunching under our boots. Riley doesn't do small talk, doesn't need to fill space with words. It's one of the things I've come to appreciate about him. That, and the fact that he saved everything I'd spent my life building. You look good, Mike, he says finally. Better than when I saw you in July. Feel better. Sleeping through the night now. I pause at the edge of the property where the construction lights cast long shadows across newly poured foundations. Divorce finalized last month. House is mine. Retirement account recovered. Riley nods, absorbing this information without comment. He pulls out his notebook, an automatic gesture, then seems to realize he doesn't need it and returns it to his pocket. Old habits. And Sharon? He asks. I shrug. Working at a gas station on Carson Street, part of her restitution plan. The bitter satisfaction I expected to feel never materialized, just a hollow space where 30 years of marriage used to be. Saw her today, actually. She didn't see me. And how was that? Strange, I admit, like looking at a stranger wearing a familiar coat. Nothing there anymore. The last light catches the steel beams above us, final flickers of gold before twilight claims the day. Workers' trucks pull out of the lot, heading home to families, to warm kitchens and cold beers and lives uncomplicated by betrayal. I never properly thanked you, I say, turning to face him directly, for saving my reputation, my job, everything. Riley shifts, uncomfortable with gratitude. Just followed the evidence, he says, eyes fixed on the building rather than on me. You did the hard part, rebuilt afterward. Still, I persist, what you did, catching them, documenting everything, making sure Keystone knew the truth, that gave me the chance to rebuild. I won't forget it. He accepts this with a slight nod, the closest he'll come to acknowledging the depth of what happened between us. In his world, I suspect, people don't often say thank you. They just pay their bills and disappear back into their lives, leaving Riley to find the next truth, solve the next mystery. Heard you met someone, he says, changing the subject. Lisa Harris, the nurse? A smile tugs at my mouth before I can stop it. Word gets around. Small city, Riley says, the ghost of a smile touching his eyes, if not his lips. She seems like good people. She is. The simplicity of the statement contains everything I don't need to explain, how Lisa's straightforward kindness helped heal what Sharon's deception broke, how her laughter sounds like forgiveness, how her touch reminds me that not all hands are meant to tear down. Good, Riley says. Just that. Good. From him, it's enough. We part ways at the parking lot, him to his Chevy, me to my truck. No handshakes, no promises to stay in touch. Men like us say what needs saying in the work we do, the lives we build, the truths we face. The rest is just noise. As I drive away, the steel skeleton of the Riverside complex fades into darkness behind me, waiting for tomorrow's light, tomorrow's work. The foundation is solid. Everything else can be rebuilt. String lights crisscross the cul-de-sac like constellations brought down to earth, swaying in the October breeze. The block party hums with laughter and clinking bottles, neighbors and crew members mingling in the shared glow of victory. The Riverside contract win calls for celebration, Pittsburgh style. Folding tables groan under the weight of casseroles, Pittsburgh-style sandwiches stuffed with coleslaw and fries, and enough Iron City beer to float a barge down the Monongahela. Kids dart between adults, sparklers tracing light paths through the growing darkness. Music drifts from someone's portable speaker. Springsteen, because some things in this neighborhood never change, even when everything else has. I lean against a pickup truck, nursing a beer that's grown warm in my hand, watching instead of participating. Old habit. Even before everything with Sharon, I was always the observer at these things, the solid presence on the periphery. But tonight feels different. The weight on my shoulders has shifted from burden to accomplishment. There he is! The old-timer with missing fingers raises his beer in my direction. The man who brought home the Riverside deal. A cheer ripples through the crowd. Genuine, not the polite acknowledgement of people who still harbor doubts. 6 months ago, these same neighbors watched police cars in my driveway, whispered behind curtains, left casseroles on my porch with notes saying, "Hang in there," but didn't knock to check if I was hanging. Now they clap me on the shoulder, ask about the project timeline, tell me they always knew I'd bounce back. Lisa appears from the crowd, carrying 2 fresh beers. She wears a simple blue dress, hair loose around her shoulders instead of the practical ponytail from her nursing shifts. The sight of her walking toward me still feels like finding level ground after months of standing on a tilting floor. "Your adoring public awaits," she says, handing me a cold bottle. "The old guy with the missing fingers has been telling everyone how you saved his job after the unpleasantness, as he calls it. Joe exaggerates," I say, but the warmth spreads through my chest anyway. "I just made sure the crew stayed together when we moved to the new site. That's not how they tell it." Lisa's eyes crinkle at the corners when she smiles, my favorite thing about her face. No artifice, no calculation, just genuine emotion. "According to them, you're some kind of blue-collar saint." The music changes, shifts to something slower. Couples drift toward the makeshift dance area in the center of the cul-de-sac, arms finding familiar places around waists and shoulders. Lisa's eyes follow them, then return to mine, a question in them that she's too careful to ask aloud. We've been taking things slow, coffee after her shifts, occasional dinners, a few movies. Both of us carrying the caution of past wounds. "Want to?" I nod toward the dancers. She looks surprised. "You dance?" "Poorly," I admit, "but I'm willing to risk public humiliation." Her laugh is like coming home after a long day on site, the best kind of relief. She sets down her beer, takes my hand. "Then let's humiliate ourselves together." We join the other couples, finding a rhythm that's neither graceful nor embarrassing. My hand rests at the small of her back, feeling the warmth of her through the thin fabric. Her fingers curl around my shoulder, steady as iron. "This is nice," she says, eyes reflecting the string lights overhead. "All of it, the party, the people." "You," I add, the word slipping out before I can catch it. She smiles, a slight flush coloring her cheeks. 6 months of careful rebuilding between us, trust laid brick by brick, mortar allowed to set before adding weight. No rush, no pressure. Just the steady accumulation of moments like these. "Mike, there you are?" The foreman approaches, his wife beside him, both slightly drunk on victory and beer. "Lisa, has he told you about the Riverside deal? Biggest project in the South Side in a decade?" "Only about 100 times," she says, but her voice carries pride that matches his. "We're expanding the crew," I explain. 20 new jobs starting next month. Good wages, union benefits. He insisted on hiring local, the foreman adds. Guys from the neighborhood. Keystone wanted to bring in cheaper labor from outside, but Mike held firm. His wife nods approvingly. "That's why everyone's here tonight. It's not just your win. It's everyone's." They drift away, replaced by neighbors with congratulations, questions about hiring, stories about previous block parties. Through it all, Lisa stays close, her hand finding mine between conversations, anchoring me to the present when memories of other gatherings, with Sharon standing cool and distant at my side, threaten to surface. The old-timer corners us by the dessert table, 3 beers in and loose with storytelling. "Did Mike tell you about the time he fell through the false ceiling at the Peterson job? Landed right in the client's bathtub. Still had his boots on." Lisa's eyes widen with delight. "He most certainly did not." "Wasn't my finest moment," I admit, reaching for a brownie to hide my embarrassment. "Man picks himself up, covers in drywall dust, says to the client, 'Just checking your water pressure, ma'am.'" Joe slaps his knee, the missing fingers making the gesture somehow more emphatic. Never seen a man so calm covered in that much debris. That sounds exactly like him, Lisa says, squeezing my hand. Cool under pressure. Kept all of us employed through the worst of it, Joe adds, his tone shifting from teasing to earnest. When everything went down with... He catches himself, glances at me apologetically. With the trouble. Mike made sure we had work. Stood up for the crew when others wanted to clean house. Lisa's eyes find mine, something fierce and proud in them. That sounds exactly like him, too. The music shifts again, someone cranking up the volume. The crowd responds, conversations growing louder to compete. Lisa tugs my hand, nodding toward the quieter edge of the gathering. We weave through neighbors and co-workers, finding a pocket of relative calm beneath a maple tree strung with white lights. Too much? She asks, knowing how I value quiet. Just enough, I correct her. But a breather's good. From here, the party looks like a scene from someone else's life. The kind of happy ending I stopped believing in when I found those photos spread across my kitchen table. People laughing, dancing, celebrating something I helped build. A future taking shape, concrete and real. Penny for your thoughts, Lisa says. Wondering how I got here, I answer truthfully. 6 months ago. She nods, understanding. 6 months ago, I was treating you for that cut on your hand. You looked like you'd lost more than blood. I had. The memory is distant now, dulled by time and newer, better moments. Everything I thought was solid turned out to be sand. Not everything, she corrects gently. Your work, your reputation, the respect of people who matter. She gestures toward the crowd. That was always concrete. Our fingers brush, and I feel a spark. Static from the dry autumn air, but it jolts me nonetheless. This woman sees foundations where others see only finished structures. I'm glad you came tonight, I say, to celebrate with me. I'm glad you asked. She steps closer, the string lights casting patterns across her face. I wasn't sure if you were ready for this, us, in public. I wasn't, I admit. For a long time. Felt too exposed, too raw. I look back at the party, my crew, my neighbors, my community. But some things are worth building in the open, where everyone can see. The music slows again, a different song but the same invitation. Without speaking, we move back toward the dancers, finding our place among them. Lisa's head rests against my shoulder, a weight so different from the ones I've carried, a weight that supports rather than burdens. You know, she says quietly, for a man who works with blueprints, you're surprisingly good at improvising. I laugh, the sound surprising me with its ease. Construction is 90% adapting to what doesn't match the plans. And life? About the same ratio, I say, spinning her gently under the canopy of lights. Maybe higher. As the night deepens, faces begin to fade from the gathering. Parents usher tired children home. Older neighbors cite early morning commitments. My crew lingers, celebrating not just the contract, but the vindication it represents. Each handshake, each "See you Monday, boss," carries the unspoken acknowledgement. We survived, we rebuilt, we're stronger for it. Lisa and I dance one last time as the party winds down, most of the food gone, the beer supply dwindling to warm dregs in plastic coolers. The string lights sway overhead, throwing shifting patterns across the asphalt that reminds me of sunlight through scaffolding, beauty in the unfinished, promise in the framework. "What are you thinking?" Lisa asks, her eyes searching mine. I look around at what remains of the celebration, at the neighborhood that witnessed my fall and now my rise, at the woman who entered my life when it was at its most broken. The thought forms with the clarity of a perfectly leveled foundation. You can build a new life, I tell her, the words both observation and promise, even after they try to tear it down. Her smile says she understands exactly what I mean. We keep dancing as the music plays on, moving together through the gentle dark, finding our rhythm in a world rebuilt from scratch.